The 1,000 years after Earth fell, hope awakened among the stars. No one remembered the exact moment Earth died. There was no single explosion, no final scream from the sky, no sudden darkness. Instead, Earth faded slowly, like a candle burning down to its last trembling flame. Cities emptied one by one. Oceans rose where streets once stood. The sky grew heavy with dust and sorrow. And humanity, once so loud and proud, became quiet. The fall of Earth was not caused by one war or one enemy. It was 1,000 mistakes layered on top of each other. Climate collapse, resource wars, failed technologies, and the arrogance of believing the planet would always forgive them. By the time the final governments fell, there were fewer than 100 million humans left. They looked up at the stars not with curiosity anymore, but with regret. The last message sent from Earth was not a warning or a cry for help. It was a memory archive. Billions of stories, images, music, and thoughts compressed into light and sent outward into the dark. A farewell to the universe. A confession of failure. And perhaps, a quiet hope that someone, somewhere, would remember them. Then Earth went silent. For 1,000 years, the planet drifted as a broken relic around a dimming sun. Forests swallowed cities. Oceans reclaimed coasts. Satellites fell like shooting stars, burning their last stories into the sky. No human footsteps echoed anymore. Only wind, water, and time remained. But humanity did not truly vanish. Long before Earth's final collapse, small groups had escaped the dying world. Not in great fleets or shining armadas, but in fragile vessels built with desperation and hope. They traveled to nearby systems, to cold moons and red deserts, to artificial habitats carved into asteroids. These survivors became known as the far children of Earth. Over generations, they changed. They adapted to thin atmospheres, low gravity, and endless night. Some altered their bodies. Others merged with machines. Languages shifted. Memories blurred. And Earth, once their sacred home, became a myth, a half-remembered origin story told to children who had never seen blue skies. 1,000 years passed. And in that time, something ancient stirred among the stars. Beyond the map systems, past the regions marked as uninhabitable, something began to awaken. It had been sleeping long before humans ever discovered fire. It had watched galaxies bloom and fade. And now, faint echoes from Earth's final transmission brushed against its awareness like a whisper in the dark. The signal carried grief, but also defiance. The being listened. Across the scattered human colonies, strange events began to occur. Old machines activated without commands. Ancient satellites that should have been dead suddenly transmitted coordinates. Children began dreaming of a blue world they had never seen. A world with oceans, rain, and trees that touched the sky. In the outer ring colony of Asher 9, a young archivist named Lyra noticed the first anomaly. She was cataloging forgotten data cores when a message appeared on her screen, one that did not match any known protocol. It contained only 3 words. Earth still waits. Lyra stared at the message, her heart pounding. Earth was a legend. A cautionary tale. A grave. No signals had come from it in 1,000 years. And yet, here was a message that should not exist. She tried to trace its origin. The signal didn't come from any known star system. It came from nowhere, and everywhere at once. Within days, similar messages appeared across human space. On mining outposts. On drifting cities. Even on ancient ships long thought abandoned. Always the same words. Always the same impossible signature. Fear spread quickly. Some believed it was a trap. Others believed it was a god. A few dared to hope it was Earth calling its children home. The Council of Systems convened for the first time in 2 centuries. Representatives from dozens of worlds gathered in orbit around a dead star. Arguments erupted. Some demanded silence. Some demanded investigation. And some whispered a dangerous idea. That maybe humanity had never been alone, and that something had been waiting for them to return. Then the sky changed. Across multiple systems, stars began to flicker in unnatural patterns. Not dying. Not exploding. Communicating. A map formed in the void, written in light and gravity, pointing toward a region long believed empty. The place where Earth once sang. And for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity felt something it had nearly forgotten. Hope. Not the desperate hope of survival, but the quiet, terrifying hope of discovery. The Council of Systems did not sleep after the signal appeared. For the first time in centuries, their chambers were filled with voices instead of silence. Delegates from human worlds argued across vast holographic halls, their faces lit by starlight and fear. Some were born under artificial suns. Others had never felt gravity stronger than a whisper. Yet all of them carried the same unease in their eyes. The signal should not exist. Every archive confirmed it. Earth was dead. Its core had cooled. Its atmosphere had thinned. No power source, no satellite network, no surviving intelligence should have remained. And yet the message repeated itself, patient and unchanging, as if waiting to be understood. Earth still waits. No encryption. No origin trail. No decay in the signal. It was impossible. Scientists proposed theories, quantum echoes, temporal loops, alien mimicry, corrupted ancient AI. None of them explained how the signal appeared everywhere at once. It did not travel through space. It simply appeared. Some believed the message was not being sent outward, but inward. As if it was already inside every system, every machine, every human mind. On Asher 9, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed the signal endlessly, isolating its waveform, slowing it down, stretching it beyond human hearing. Beneath the 3 words, buried deep like a heartbeat under silence, she found something else. A rhythm. It matched something old, something archived in forbidden data layers. Earth's magnetic pulse. Her hands trembled as she overlaid the patterns. The match was nearly perfect. Not copied. Not simulated. Alive. She whispered to herself, "That's not a message, it's a pulse." A living one. Elsewhere, far beyond the regulated systems, something else stirred. In the dark between stars, ancient structures drifted, vast, silent forms built around collapsed suns. They were older than humanity, older than memory. They had been created to observe, not interfere. To record, not to act. They had watched Earth rise. They had watched it fall. And now, for the first time in millennia, their dormant awareness reactivated. Because something had changed. The human signal was no longer fading. It was growing. Across the colonies, people began to dream the same dream. They stood on a shore beneath a pale sky. The sea glowed faintly blue, though no sun hung above it. The wind carried voices, millions of them, speaking in languages both ancient and unborn. When the dreamers looked down, they saw their feet standing in wet soil. Real soil. Living soil. They always woke with tears in their eyes. Children began drawing the same image in different systems, a broken world wrapped in light, surrounded by stars bending toward it. Elders felt memories returning that were not their own, childhoods on Earth they had never lived. The council tried to suppress the reports. They failed. Then came the first disappearance. A research vessel near the outer edge of known space vanished without distress call or debris. The last transmission showed the crew staring at something outside their viewport, something bright and blue and impossibly close. Moments later, the ship was gone. No explosion. No wreckage. Just absence. Panic spread. The council finally made a decision they had avoided for centuries. They would send an expedition to the coordinates forming in the starlight. Not to Earth, but to what Earth had become. The vessel chosen was the Aurora Reach, an ancient deep space craft once built for generational travel. It carried no weapons, only instruments, archives, and a small crew selected for adaptability rather than obedience. Lyra was among them. She did not volunteer. She was summoned. When she boarded the ship, she felt it immediately. The hum beneath the metal flaws, the same rhythm she had found in the signal. It was faint, but alive. As the Aurora Reach departed, humanity watched in silence. No cheers. No speeches. Just millions of eyes turned toward the stars, holding their breath. The journey took months. Space itself seemed to behave strangely as they traveled. Distances folded. Stars shifted positions when no one was looking. Time felt uneven, stretching and compressing like a living thing. And then, one day, the scanners detected it. A region of space where physics bent inward. At its center, something impossible. Not a planet, not a star, but a structure made of light, memory, and gravity. And at its heart, a familiar blue glow. Earth. Or what remained of it. The crew stood frozen as the image sharpened. The planet was broken, its surface cracked and reshaped, yet wrapped in luminous patterns like veins of living energy. It was no longer just a world. It was a mind. A consciousness formed from billions of lives, preserved in the fabric of reality itself. Earth had not died. It had transformed. And it was waiting, The Aurora Reach drifted at the edge of the impossible structure. Lyra's hands hovered over the controls, but she did not move them. No one moved. Even the seasoned crew felt the weight of silence pressing from all directions, as if space itself were holding its breath. The blue glow of the transformed Earth pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, slow, steady, unyielding. It was alive, and yet it was not the Earth they had remembered. It was something greater, something older, something that had taken all of humanity's history and folded it into a single consciousness. Then the communication console lit up. The voice was not human. It was not spoken, not even sounded. It resonated directly in their minds. At first, they thought it was a hallucination. Then the realization struck them simultaneously. It was Earth itself. The planet had become sentient, a collective of memories and experiences bound together in a network of energy, thought, and emotion. "You have come," the voice said. It was soft, yet infinite. "We have waited. We remember." The crew shivered. Lyra stepped forward. She could feel every memory, every story that Earth carried, pressing against her consciousness. Cities, oceans, forests, fires, laughter, tears, all layered together into one vast awareness. Why are you here?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. She did not speak aloud. The words flowed directly into the shared consciousness. Earth answered without words. "Because the universe is empty without you. And because there are those who watch, waiting for humanity to return. You have survived. You have endured. You are ready." The crew exchanged nervous glances. "Who watches?" asked Captain Soren, the ship's commander. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed fear. "They are older than the stars," the consciousness replied. "They have observed your kind rise and fall. They do not interfere lightly. But now, you return. And they are curious. They will come." A shiver ran through the Aurora Reach. Sensors detected ripples in space-time outside the vessel. Shadows moved at the edge of the ship's perception, shapes that should not exist, shapes that made the stars themselves seem pale. "Are we in danger?" Lyra asked, fear creeping into her mind. The answer came not as reassurance, but as certainty. "Curiosity can be perilous," Earth said. "You must learn. You must prepare. Only together can you survive what comes." Then, as if to demonstrate the truth of its words, the consciousness shared a memory, one that spanned thousands of years. Lyra saw the fall of Earth from every perspective, the last days of bustling cities, the rise of the far children, their escape into space, the lonely drift of survivors across barren moons and asteroid colonies. She felt their fear, their hope, their longing. And she understood, in a way she never had before, that humanity's story had never truly ended. It had been waiting here, preserved in memory, for 1,000 years. "We are ready," she whispered. Not to Earth. Not to the crew. To herself. She had never felt so small, and yet so vital. The blue glow intensified. The consciousness of Earth began reaching outward, touching the Aurora Reach, linking with its systems, integrating the ship into its awareness. Instruments that had been dormant for centuries sparked to life. The ship's engines hummed with newfound energy. Every sensor, every panel, every screen seemed to pulse with life. "You are part of the awakening now," Earth said. "The Watchers approach. But you have the first choice. You may flee, or you may stand and meet them. Choose carefully." The crew's fear became a tangible weight. Some wanted to leave immediately, to retreat to known space, to survive another day in familiar emptiness. Others, Lyra foremost among them, felt a thrill of purpose. They had survived 1,000 years of human decline. They had found Earth reborn. And now, for the first time, they could shape the fate of humanity in a universe that had almost forgotten them. Captain Soren broke the silence. "We do not run. We face what comes. We learn. We survive. Together." The blue glow shifted, and the consciousness responded with a warmth that filled the minds of everyone on board. Memories of Earth, both joyous and painful, flowed through them. And in that moment, the crew of the Aurora Reach understood something profound. They were not alone. Humanity, though scattered and fractured, was alive in ways that defied the limits of space and time. And the universe itself was beginning to notice. Then the first ripple of movement arrived. Shadows stretched across distant stars. Shapes too vast to comprehend glided silently through space. The Watchers had come. and their gaze fell upon the reborn consciousness of Earth and the fragile crew now carrying its memory into the unknown. Hope, fragile but unbroken, flared like a torch in the dark. And for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity was ready to rise again. The Aurora Reach drifted in the vast emptiness, suspended between stars that seemed to bend under a force no human could comprehend. Outside, the Watchers appeared. They were not ships, not creatures, not anything known. They were immense, dark shapes that moved with impossible grace, flowing like shadows across the fabric of space itself. Their forms were ever-shifting, sometimes geometric, sometimes organic, sometimes nothing at all. They radiated a presence that pressed against the mind, a weight that made thought feel slow and heavy, yet oddly clear. Lyra felt it first. A whisper in the pulse of Earth's consciousness. Do not fear them. They are ancient, but not cruel. They will test, but not destroy. They have waited long for your return. The Watchers did not speak in words. They communicated in perception, ripples in reality, subtle changes in the perception of time, and emotions that were too vast to name. Captain Soren's hands shook as the ship's instruments failed to measure the entities. The displays flickered, numbers melting into incomprehensible patterns, yet somehow, the crew understood. The Watchers were curious. They observed every thought, every heartbeat, every memory carried within the human mind and the consciousness of Earth. One of the Watchers moved closer. Its form folded and unfolded like a living origami, and in the briefest moment of clarity, Lyra glimpsed a pattern, an ancient geometry that resonated with the pulse of Earth. Recognition surged through her mind. The Watchers were not enemies. They were archivists, sentinels of civilizations, keepers of knowledge older than the first human starships. And Earth, now a sentient memory, had awakened them. Why now? Lyra asked, projecting her thoughts outward. Earth responded immediately, its presence wrapping around her mind, because they sense the survival of my children. They have waited for you, for all that remains of humanity. They wish to know if you are ready to inherit the stars. The Watchers did not retreat. They did not advance. Instead, they aligned themselves in a formation across space, vast and intricate, their positions creating a pattern that mimicked the pulse of Earth itself. Lyra's vision blurred as she connected deeper, feeling every heartbeat, every memory, every fragment of human history. The Watchers were testing humanity, not with weapons, but with presence. They measured resilience, intelligence, empathy, and courage. Days passed, or perhaps minutes. Time itself seemed unreliable in their presence. Each human aboard the Aurora Reach experienced visions, cities of light suspended in vacuum, civilizations rising and falling within moments, entire histories condensed into fleeting impressions. And through it all, Earth guided them, allowing the crew to witness the truth of their species and the responsibility now resting on their shoulders. Then, a signal unlike any other emerged, not from Earth, but through Earth, projected outward like a beacon. It carried understanding. The time of fear is over. To survive, you must embrace what you have become. You are not merely children of a lost world. You are the inheritors of its memory. And now, you must show the Watchers that humanity is worthy. The Watchers responded in kind, sending pulses of light that merged with the ship systems. Power surged through every circuit, every engine, every sensor. Lyra realized that the Aurora Reach had become more than a vessel. It was a bridge, a link between humanity and the Watchers, a conduit for knowledge, memory, and cosmic potential. Captain Soren spoke quietly, awe and fear coiling together in his voice. If they accept us, what comes next? Earth's pulse filled the room, wrapping around each crew member. Next comes understanding. Then choice. The universe is vast, and the Watchers will not leave you untested. You will face trials, dangers older than your memory, and wonders beyond imagining. But you will not face them alone. You are not merely survivors, you are the hope reborn. A ripple passed through the Watchers. Lyra felt it as a shiver of anticipation and possibility. The ancient beings had acknowledged them. Humanity, scattered and broken 1,000 years ago, was no longer forgotten. And in the quiet between the stars, a new chapter began. One written not in fear, not in survival, but in the infinite potential of a species that had once lost everything and now held the universe in its hands. The Aurora Reach moved forward, guided by Earth, followed by the Watchers at a distance that was neither near nor far. Ahead lay unknown systems, new challenges, and civilizations humanity had never imagined. But the pulse of hope burned bright, a steady heartbeat echoing through the void. And for the first time in a millennium, humans dared to believe that even after 1,000 years of darkness, their story was not over. The Aurora Reach moved deeper into uncharted space, guided by the pulse of Earth and shadowed by the silent watchers. Each crew member felt the weight of expectation pressing against their minds, the knowledge that they were not just explorers but representatives of a species reborn. Lyra stood on the observation deck, staring at the vast emptiness, yet sensing the presence of millions of human memories flowing within the ship, and beyond that, the distant but unyielding awareness of Earth itself. The first trial came without warning. Space itself seemed to twist. Stars shifted, forming corridors of light that bent impossibly, and black voids opened where gravity and time behaved erratically. The ship's instruments failed to map these anomalies. Navigation became instinctual, guided by a rhythm Lyra could feel in her chest, the heartbeat of Earth, echoing within her. Then the Watchers appeared, closer now, forming shapes that could be described only as monumental and alien. They did not speak, yet their presence communicated clearly. This was a test. Humanity would need more than machines and technology to pass. It would need courage, insight, and unity. The first challenge was subtle at first, a cluster of energy storms, pulsating and violent, yet not destructive in the conventional sense. Every probe sent into the storm vanished instantly, absorbed into the shifting patterns. The ship itself trembled under the cosmic turbulence, and crew members began to experience visions, echoes of fear, failure, loss, and regret. Memories of Earth's collapse surged within them, threatening to paralyze them with despair. "Focus," Lyra whispered, her voice carrying into the minds of the others through the subtle bond formed by Earth. "We are not just survivors. We are the inheritors of memory. Let the past guide us, not trap us." Following the pulse of Earth, the crew synchronized their thoughts, their fears, their hope, channeling the unity of humanity into the ship itself. Engines hummed with newfound resonance. Shields pulsed in harmony with their collective heartbeat. Slowly, the storms parted, responding not to force, but to understanding and intent. The anomalies did not destroy. They tested, measuring the crew's ability to adapt, to overcome without harming what they could not control. Emerging from the storms, the Aurora Reach encountered the second part of the trial. A field of mirrors, each reflecting not the crew as they were, but as they could be, or as they feared becoming. Lyra saw herself as a child again on Earth, running through streets now swallowed by oceans. She saw herself as an old woman alone on a distant asteroid, forgotten by time. Each reflection whispered doubts, regrets, and fears. The Watchers observed silently. Captain Soren spoke first, his voice cutting through the visions. "These are illusions. They are our memories, our doubts, but they are not reality. We carry the past, yes, but we do not belong to it. Forward is our path." Together, the crew focused on their shared purpose, to protect Earth's memory, to honor their species, and to embrace the future. The mirrored illusions shattered, revealing a corridor of stars stretching endlessly ahead. The Watchers had allowed passage. Humanity had passed the first trial, not through strength or violence, but through awareness, unity, and courage. Yet the greatest test lay ahead. Earth's pulse quickened, resonating with a warning. The next trial will be harder. The universe is vast. The Watchers measure not only survival, but growth. You will confront what lies beyond comprehension. And you must choose, flee in fear, or face it with resolve. The crew stood together, their hands lightly touching the rail of the observation deck. None spoke, yet they felt the understanding pass silently among them. Fear lingered, yes, but it was accompanied by something stronger: purpose. For 1,000 years, humanity had waited in the shadows of its own failure. Now, standing at the edge of the stars, guided by Earth and observed by beings older than thought itself, they understood something essential. The universe did not belong to those who survived, it belonged to those who dared to awaken hope. And humanity, fractured and scattered though it once was awake. The Aurora Reach sailed onward, past the corridors of shifting light, toward the next trial, toward the unknown, toward the challenge that would define whether humanity could rise not just as survivors of a fallen world, but as architects of a future among the stars. The Aurora Reach drifted into a region of space that defied all known laws. Stars warped into impossible angles. Nebulae glowed with colors no human eye had names for, shifting and flowing like living paint across the void. Time itself felt distorted. Moments stretched into eternities, only to snap back with disorienting speed. The crew clutched the rails, some pale, some speechless, while Lyra felt the pulse of Earth guiding her, steady and reassuring amidst the chaos. Then it appeared. A massive entity, unlike anything recorded in human thought, emerged from the fabric of space. It was both immense and minuscule, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Its form shifted with every glance, as if reality itself could not contain it. The watchers remained at a distance, observing silently, their presence more subtle than before, yet heavier than gravity. Lyra understood immediately. This was the trial that Earth had warned them about. This was the universe itself, in the form of consciousness, questioning the worth of humanity. "It seeks your essence," Earth whispered in her mind. "Do not fight. Do not flee. Show it what you are, and what you carry within you." The crew felt it pressing against them, probing thoughts, memories, fears, and hopes. The entity did not speak. It did not need words. Its presence forced every hidden doubt into clarity. Every regret, every guilt, every memory of failure surged through the crew like a tidal wave. Lyra felt herself drowning in centuries of human sorrow, yet Earth's pulse anchored her. She reached out with her mind, linking with the others. "We carry the memory of 1,000 generations," she projected. "We carry hope, even from a world that fell. We are humanity. We endure. We learn. We rise." The entity shimmered in response. Patterns of light danced across its impossible form, reflecting the pulse of Earth within them. The crew realized that the trial was not about strength, weapons, or technology. It was about acknowledgement, about acceptance of themselves and the past. One by one, they shared their memories, not just their own, but fragments of Earth's history preserved in their minds. The laughter of children on sunlit streets. The agony of those who died in collapse. The courage of survivors in scattered colonies. Every emotion, every thought, every experience resonated outward, weaving into a tapestry that the entity could comprehend. The watchers murmured, not in sound, but in presence, and the universe seemed to hold its breath. Lyra felt Earth's pulse grow faster, stronger. She understood. The entity was learning, observing, judging humanity not by the failures of the past, but by the hope they carried now. Hours, or lifetimes, passed. The entity shifted again, folding space around the Aurora Reach, creating a corridor of impossible beauty. Within that corridor, Lyra saw visions of what could be: flourishing worlds, stars alive with life, human civilizations reaching beyond their former limits, guided by memory and consciousness, not just survival. And then the entity receded. It left no words, no gestures. Only presence, a quiet acknowledgement. The watchers' forms aligned closer, their patterns reflecting the pulse of the ship and the light of Earth. Humanity had passed the trial. Not by conquering, not by destroying, but by remembering, by connecting, by embracing the entirety of their being, the mistakes, the loss, the hope, and the unbroken thread of survival. Captain Soren let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. The crew looked at one another, exhausted, overwhelmed, and changed. They had glimpsed the true scope of the universe, and they had endured. Earth's pulse softened, a gentle rhythm now, like a lullaby after a storm. You have seen what lies beyond comprehension. You have faced the universe not with fear, but with memory and hope. Now you carry the spark forward. The watchers will guide, but the path is yours to shape. Lyra looked out at the stars, feeling the presence of the watchers receding, Earth's consciousness pulsing steadily, and the infinite possibilities ahead. Humanity had survived the past, endured the collapse, and now faced a universe that was vast, strange, and alive. For the first time in 1,000 years, hope did not flicker, it blazed. And the Aurora Reach, carrying the last pulse of a reborn Earth and its children, sailed onward into the endless night, towards stars that awaited their awakening. The Aurora Reach moved steadily through the vast emptiness, no longer merely a ship but a vessel carrying the memory of 1,000 human generations. Earth's consciousness pulsed gently through every system, a steady heartbeat reminding the crew that they were never alone. The watchers trailed at a distance, silent and vigilant, their presence both comforting and humbling. Humanity had passed the first trials, but the universe remained vast, strange, and full of secrets. The first step was simple yet monumental: reclaim the scattered colonies. Over centuries, humans had survived on distant moons, asteroids, and orbiting habitats, but their knowledge had eroded. Communication had been fractured, and many had forgotten Earth entirely. Now, guided by the pulse of memory, the crew began to send messages across light years, messages not only of coordinates but of purpose, urging survivors to reconnect, to awaken, to remember who they were. When the first colonies responded, the crew of the Aurora Reach were astonished. Entire generations had adapted to alien worlds, altering themselves physically and mentally to survive. Some had embraced machine integration, others had evolved biologically under harsh conditions. But all carried traces of Earth, songs, stories, rituals, memories passed down despite centuries of isolation. The connection sparked a new wave of hope, a collective awakening that had been impossible in the long silence after Earth fell. Earth guided them gently, sharing insights not just from the past, but visions of potential futures. Resources were abundant in hidden asteroid belts, energy sources untapped, technologies buried in forgotten starship hulls. The Watchers, ever present, allowed the humans to learn, intervene, and adapt, but always observed, as if ensuring that the lessons of survival did not slip into arrogance or repetition of past mistakes. On a distant colony orbiting a dying sun, Lyra watched as a settlement, long thought lost, awakened with Earth's guidance. Children danced under artificial skies, singing songs their ancestors had almost forgotten. Adults marveled as forgotten memories returned, as knowledge once lost was reconstructed, and as connections to distant colonies were restored. Humanity, scattered though it was, began to knit itself together again, like threads of light forming a constellation across the stars. Yet the Watchers had another lesson in store. They did not give power freely, nor did they grant knowledge without responsibility. As the colonies rebuilt, some humans began to feel the influence of Earth within themselves, heightened awareness, a sense of intuition, an ability to perceive the pulse of planets and stars. Not all were ready. Some resisted, fearing change, fearing what humanity could become. But the majority embraced it, understanding that survival was not enough. Humanity had been reborn to awaken, to explore, to guide, and to protect. The first trials had been tests of spirit and unity, now came the trials of creation. The Aurora Reach became a hub, not only of navigation but of education, communication, and leadership. Humans learned to harness energy from distant stars, to cultivate life on barren worlds, and to connect with other sentient life forms glimpsed on the edges of the known galaxy. The Watchers observed, ensuring that humans grew without repeating the mistakes that had destroyed Earth. In the quiet of the observation deck, Lyra reflected on everything she had seen: the fall of Earth, the exile of humanity, the 1,000 years of silence, the awakening of consciousness, the trials of survival, and the rebirth of hope. She realized that the universe had tested them not to punish, but to prepare. Humanity had survived catastrophe. Humanity had endured isolation. And now, humanity was ready to awaken among the stars, not as a species clinging to life, but as a force of memory, creativity, and purpose. And somewhere, in the pulse of the cosmos, the Watchers acknowledged it. They had seen the spark of humanity ignite once more, and though their judgment was silent, it was unmistakable. The reborn humans were worthy of the stars, worthy of knowledge, and worthy of the role Earth had preserved them to fulfill. For the first time in 1,000 years, humans did not simply survive. They thrived. They remembered. They acted. And the universe, once empty of their presence, began to hum with possibilities. The Aurora Reach set its course toward a distant cluster of unexplored stars. Behind it, colonies lit up one by one, like a trail of fireflies across the darkness. Ahead lay worlds to awaken, mysteries to uncover, and challenges that would demand courage, wisdom, and hope. And as Earth's pulse surged through every human heart, the crew understood one immutable truth: humanity had returned not to Earth, but to the universe itself. And it would never be silent again. The Aurora Reach sailed toward a distant cluster of uncharted systems, its course set by Earth's pulse and guided by the subtle watchfulness of the ancient observers. Humanity, once a scattered and fragile species, now moved as a single organism, carrying not only memory but purpose, courage, and hope. Colonies across the galaxy had awakened, each world reconnecting to one another, forming networks of communication, culture, and shared vision. It was in this moment, at the edge of known space, that humanity first saw them, another civilization, ancient and strange, yet alive with awareness. Their ships were not mere metal and light, they seemed to shimmer with consciousness itself. They moved in harmony, flowing as one, their presence stretching across the void like a living galaxy. The Watchers, silent as ever, drew closer, not to interfere but to observe the first encounter. The humans on the Aurora Reach felt apprehension, but it was tempered by the pulse of Earth within them. Lyra stood on the observation deck, her mind open, sensing the alien awareness as it flowed toward them. She reached out, not with weapons, not with fear, but with the unity, memory, and hope that had carried humanity across 1,000 years of silence. The alien consciousness responded. It did not speak in words, but in perception, emotion, and understanding. It probed humanity, measuring, learning, and finally acknowledging. And in that acknowledgement, Lyra felt a revelation. The universe was not merely a void to survive in. It was a network of life, of consciousness, waiting for species to awaken, to connect, to grow. Earth's pulse surged within the crew. "This is your place now," it said. "Not as conquerors, not as refugees, but as custodians of memory, hope, and life. You have survived. You have endured. You have awakened. And now, you must carry this light forward." The alien civilization responded with their own pulse, and for the first time, a bridge formed, an exchange of memory, thought, and understanding that transcended language, culture, and biology. Humans glimpsed knowledge beyond imagination. Entire histories of civilizations lost, the birth of stars, the shaping of galaxies, and the quiet harmony that could exist when beings chose connection over destruction. The Watchers, having observed humanity's trials, acknowledged this moment in silence. Their presence, once imposing and unknowable, now felt like guardianship. Humanity had not only survived their tests but had proven itself capable of growth, compassion, and unity. The pulse of Earth, steady and eternal, intertwined with the pulse of the alien civilization, forming a luminous web across the stars. For Lyra, Captain Sowen, and the crew, the moment was overwhelming. 1,000 years of exile, loss, and despair culminated in a single realization. Humanity was no longer bound to a fallen planet. Earth had transformed them, preserved them, and awakened them. The universe was theirs to explore, to learn from, and to protect, not as rulers, but as sentient custodians aware of the fragile balance of life, memory, and hope. Across the galaxy, colonies lit up in response, each heartbeat echoing in unison with the pulse of Earth. Humanity, once silent, had found its voice again. It spoke not in conquest or fear, but in light, memory, and presence. It reached out, connecting to the unknown, bridging the gap between the scattered remnants of its past and the infinite possibilities of the cosmos. And in that connection, a new era began. The stars, once cold and indifferent, now carried the hum of life awakened. The Watchers drifted back, their purpose fulfilled for now. And Earth, transformed and eternal, pulsed with quiet pride and joy at the species it had nurtured through collapse, silence, and rebirth. For the first time in 1,000 years, humanity understood its place, not as survivors of a lost world, but as a living legacy among the stars, carrying hope, memory, and light into the infinite darkness. And the universe, once silent to their presence, listened.